King Charles V. He had the first idea for a canal, and he had that idea in year 1534. That old the idea is. Later we had some explorers in Panama. Some were English, some were French. We're trying to find like a spot where it would be possible to dig canals, not only in Panama but in the region. We had even one guy from England who made claims that he had walked across Panama by the side of a river that mysteriously ran into two oceans, or flushed into two oceans, and he claimed that. Later some people even died trying to find again that river. It was all a story that he made up. But then it came a moment when the French made some serious investigation, and then they spotted 19 places between Panama and southern Mexico where people could dig canals, rivers, where there were important rivers that they could dredge, etc. And well, when the French started digging their sea level canals, they started with the Suez Canal. Later they became, you know, the people with the expertise and the reputation. So they came to Panama trying to dig this sea level canal. Thing was horrendous when at the end over 22,000 people died because of malaria and other tropical diseases. I mean, that's bad. Imagine 22,000 people dying in 9 years. That's terrible. So for years, this disaster had a strong impact in the world. People could, many of them had in the back of their minds that maybe this land was cursed, because after so many people died here, I mean, this was something real big. To the point that still in these days, in some languages, they use the word Panama as a synonym for scam and as a synonym of fraud. In French, but Panama was a word meaning scam for many years. And right now in Bulgaria, they still have the term that the Panama happened to this, to say the money disappeared. So this was something big when the French failed to create their sea level canal. But then it came the moment when the U.S., after the Civil War, started its consolidation and its expansion. So shortly after the Spanish-American War ended, then we had the U.S. fighting with Spain for the control in the region. Then we hear of the Spanish-American War, and we hear of this expansion of the U.S. to places like Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Philippines. All of these were at a certain point in time, well, American Samoans and many others. So this was a moment of expansion, and in that moment of expansion, here in Panama, the narrowest part between the two countries was controlled by the U.S. We had then the creation of a man-made canal across the country. Originally they thought that this was going to be a sea level canal, but later the Senate of the US decided that this was going to be a lock-type canal after making some considerations having to do with the geography of Panama. To make a long story short, creating a sea level canal across Panama would have taken 28 years of excavation, and the lock-type canal was 10 years and change. So I mean, it was like a significant time saving, like to create a lock-type canal. But the other side of this story was that it had to be made with materials that were still in experimental stages. Concrete, electricity. By the time we're talking about 1903, 1904, they were still experimenting with concrete. There was nowhere in the world another structure made of concrete of the size of one lock in the canal. The use of electricity was still in its early stages. So creating locomotives that would operate on electricity in Panama and creating a super lock or super locks made of concrete was like rocket science applied to construction. So with that kind of vision, they came to Panama and created the lock type canal. Why locks? Because in Panama we have between the two oceans, well, a mass of land with lots of mountains. Here we have a close-up. This is the Pacific, this is the Caribbean, and then all of these here is irregular land. Lots of mountains is what you have here. Then, well, nothing of what you see here in blue color at the center was there back then, before 1906, when some serious dredging started. So what they did was, somebody came up with this amazing idea. They saw here a valley, a big valley, and they thought, hey, there's a river that starts somewhere here and goes this and flushes into the Caribbean. Why don't we use that river to flood that valley that is here in central Panama? So the ships that wish to make it between one side and the other start at sea level in the Caribbean, then they make it to the lake, they cross the lake. So instead of excavating a channel, they flooded the central part of Panama. And then on the other side, we send them to the ocean. Now the thing is that since this lake here is 85 feet above sea level, you need elevators to raise the ships here from sea level in the Caribbean up 85 feet above sea level, the level of the lake, so they can make the crossing. And then here on the Pacific side, you need to lower those ships 85 feet so they can make it to sea level on the Pacific side. So that's why the locks. Then the locks, the concept of a lock or an elevator that works only with water and gravity is very old. It started with Da Vinci. It's one of those crazy ideas of Da Vinci. He came up with that idea in 1497. And this was a request of the Italian authorities that wanted him to design an elevator for a river in Milano, Italy. So that's how the two oceans got connected. On the central part, we have this system where there's only fresh water, because this is a river, remember? So the water that comes, that floods the valley in central Panama, is coming from the Chagres River. So this is all fresh water we have in the central part of Panama. So when the ship is navigating between one set of locks to the other set of locks, it's navigating in fresh water. So you have to make considerations, because the buoyancy in fresh water is less than in salt water. This is there's less density. So even the ship will sink a little bit, few inches. So that's why we have a lock type canal in Panama, not a sea level canal. Creating a sea level canal or digging from one side of Panama to the other would have taken 28 years. And there was no guarantee that this would be enough. Because here in the Pacific, because of the tidal variations of 11, 19 feet that we have,